Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome to the second mock draft of the offseason. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in. So with the first pick, nothing changes, nothing crazy. The Jacksonville Jaguars are still going to be picking quarterback from Clemson, Trevor Lawrence, okay? Again, this is pretty much guaranteed to happen. Trevor Lawrence is the perfect quarterback prospect. Jacksonville needs a quarterback desperately, a new face of the franchise. It'll be Lawrence to the Jags. With the second overall pick in this mock draft, I have the New York Jets going with quarterback from BYU, Zach Wilson. And I feel like at this point in time, all signs are pointing to this actually becoming a reality on draft day. I mean, when you're looking at Wilson as a prospect, he provides an offense with so many different tools: arm strength, mobility, playmaking ability. He can beat you inside the pocket, outside the pocket, does a great job throwing on the run, knowing where to go with the football, great command while at BYU. The list goes on and on and on. Of course, there's some concerns. His frame, he's kind of a small guy. There's some injury concerns as well with the throwing arm. But all in all, when you start looking at Wilson, number one as a prospect, and then you're starting to project him into what the Jets want to do on offense, right? When you're projecting Wilson into the Jets scheme, he's a seamless fit. He has that quick release. He is accurate in the short passing game. He does really, really, really well off of play action. I feel like that's exactly what Mike LaFleur wants in a quarterback. What better guy in this draft than Zach Wilson sitting there at spot number 2? So Wilson to the Jets. With the third overall pick, we have the San Francisco 49ers on the clock. As we all know, they shot up the draft board, trading up at the Miami Dolphins. We all know why they did it. It's to select a quarterback. The question is who? Justin Fields? Trey Lance? Could it be Mac Jones, kind of the hot name? Everybody's projecting him to go with that third overall pick. The prototypical Kyle Shanahan guy, quick release, accurate, good footwork, bigger arm than Garoppolo. All of a sudden, if you take a big arm quarterback and you put him in this Shanahan offense, now all of a sudden you can start to utilize the deep parts of the field, which is pretty much non-existent with Jimmy at the helm. But I think at the end of the day, the Niners will go with Trey Lance. When I look at Trey Lance, I could be dead wrong. I could be 1,000% wrong here. It very well could be Mac Jones. I like Fields a lot. I like Mac Jones a lot. But when I look at Trey Lance, I look at a guy with untapped potential, a guy with an incredibly high ceiling, a guy who I feel like can physically dominate the sport of football. He just needs to get with the right coach. What better coach out there than Kyle Shanahan to develop him? All right, you're walking into a situation with weapons, with a good defense, with a great coaching staff in place, with a guy at the helm in Jimmy Garoppolo who's expected to start. You don't and by the way, the 49ers publicly have not shown any interest in trading Garoppolo. That could be a lie, but who knows? As we stand right now, he's still the starting quarterback. So Trey Lance isn't going to be walking into a situation where it's, oh my God, I need to start right now. I need to save the franchise. Like Trevor, like Zach Wilson with the Jets. It's no, I can kick back. I can learn the system. I can create that chemistry, create that camaraderie with my teammates. And then when I'm ready, or when Garoppolo eventually gets hurt, or if he's, plays a full season, then he's ready to take over the following year. So Trey Lance for me, because I think he has the potential to be a top 5 guy with Mac Jones. I just don't see that potential. So Lance to the Niners. Next up, with the fourth overall pick, we have the Atlanta Falcons on the clock. This pick right here can go in a bunch of different directions. Okay, they can trade down. I feel like when you look at what the Falcons need as a team, there's not really a prospect worth taking with that fourth overall pick, right? Pass rusher, corner, linebacker. Not worth it. Not worth it. And as much as I want this team to draft Justin Fields, it doesn't look like it's going to go that way. All signs are pointing to this team kind of shifting into a win now mode with Arthur Smith coming in, and they still believe in Matt Ryan, and that's totally fine. I think Matt Ryan can still play, but I feel like much like the 49ers, that quarterback can slide perfectly right in as that backup for a season, and then comes in with a ton of weapons. But when there's smoke, there's fire, and there's been a ton of smoke surrounding Kyle Pitts with the Falcons, so I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts, the Falcons, okay? I don't really think this is a huge need, but in my opinion, he's the best player in the draft outside of Trevor Lawrence. I've watched pretty much every snap of Kyle Pitts. The guy is absolutely dominant. You're looking at the weapons on Atlanta: Julio, Calvin Ridley, Hayden Hurst, and now Kyle Pitts. Unbelievable. Have fun trying to stop that. So Kyle Pitts to the Falcons. Next up, fifth overall, we have the Cincinnati Bengals on the clock. I'm going with tackle from Oregon, Penei Sewell. Now, I get the Jamar Chase push, right? I think that would be honestly an incredible pick. It gives the Bengals more creativity. It gives them explosiveness. It gives them a dynamic player on the offensive side of the football. You have that Joe Burrow connection. I get it completely. But when I'm looking at team needs, I feel like the offensive line has been an issue for the last couple of seasons. It needs to be fixed. It has to. You cannot get an offensive lineman as good as Penei Sewell is, as talented as Sewell is, in rounds 2 or 3 or 4. With wide receiver, I like Tyler Boyd a lot. I like T. Higgins, who was a second-round pick last season, a lot. I think if you really want that wide receiver, you can go out and select one in round 2, and he can be that, that day one impact guy. And Penei Sewell, you can take Sewell, you can put him at left tackle, you can take Jonah Williams and put him at guard. I like bringing in Reef from Minnesota. He's not the best tackle in the world, but I like him at right tackle. All of a sudden, you're upgrading 3 spots in one offseason, and one of those left Penei Sewell is a huge boost. So all in all, Sewell to the Bengals. Next up, spot number 6, Miami Dolphins. Moving around the draft from 3 to 12 to 6, wide receiver Jamar Chase here. He doesn't wait long. He doesn't go to Cincy, but he goes to Miami. When I look at what Miami needs on offense, they need bodies. They need talent. They need weapons. I like Devontae Parker a lot. I like Will Fuller. That acquisition, 1-year, $10 million deal, super cheap. Sign me up for that. But they don't have enough. I feel like the offense, it was lacking last season. It was not good at all. The defense was fantastic. I really like the coaching staff, but you need to get to as much help as possible. You have a young offensive line. We'll address that later. Jamar Chase, best player on the board, comes in at a huge position of need. You're looking at Will Fuller, Devontae Parker, Jamar Chase, Jakeem Grant, a guy who I also like. That is great for Miami. Next up, spot number 7, we have our first trade up of this mock draft, really our only trade up of this mock draft. The New England Patriots are trading up with the Detroit Lions to select a quarterback. Now, I got to be honest, I probably spent an hour trying to decide which quarterback to give New England here, because I think both guys still on the board would be absolutely incredible. But I decided on Mac Jones because of the history. When you look at what Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels prioritize with quarterbacks coming out of college, think back to Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett, even Jarrett Stidham. These are all guys that can process information quickly and get rid of the ball quickly. All super lightning fast releases. When I look at Justin Fields, you can make the argument, hey, he's a perfect system fit, because of what the Patriots want to do with Cam Newton. Their best buddies off the field, Newton and Fields, so that development is going to be there. And Fields to the Patriots can very well happen. I'm not saying I'm right by any means. If Fields goes to New England, I would give that an A+ pick, honestly. But I think maybe, just maybe, New England might want to get back to the system that they've been running in previous seasons. So if things go south with Cam Newton this season, they can move off of him. They only signed that 1 year incentive. Newton only signed that 1 year contract, mainly incentives. You can just part ways with him and then insert your guy Mac Jones, a guy who can studies his butt off, understands the offense. He can get rid of the ball quickly, really good footwork, great in the short passing game, great in play action as well. So I think Mac Jones to the New England Patriots makes sense, but it can go either way, honestly. And Justin Fields, by the way, won't be on the board for too long. And with that being said, the 8th overall pick, we have the Carolina Panthers on the board. They land their franchise quarterback. It's Justin Fields. Okay, this is a slam dunk pick. You're now pairing Justin Fields up with not only just a ton of weapons with Moore, Anderson, CJ McCaffrey, but you're also giving him a great innovative coaching staff coming from college, right? Matt Rule came from Baylor. Joe Brady came from LSU. Spent some time with the Saints before that, but the point I'm trying to get at is this team knows college offense. This team has a ton of weapons. They also have Teddy Bridgewater there, so Fields doesn't have to play right away. He could come in and learn from Bridgewater and do the things that Bridgewater cannot do, which is push the ball downfield. Bridgewater's accurate. He's a great leader. He's a great teammate. I like Bridgewater a lot, but he's not going to be the guy for the next decade. Justin Fields is. So overall, the Panthers strike gold. Next up, spot number 9, we have the Denver Broncos. I'm going to say Micah Parsons, linebacker from Penn State. Now, number 1, the Broncos have that need at linebacker. Number 2, Micah Parsons is arguably the best defensive player in this entire draft, and he'd be a top 5 lock if it wasn't for some off-the-field red flags. Initially, I was going to give this team a corner, but I feel like after the acquisition of Kyle Fuller, cheap 1 year, $9.5 million contract, steal for Denver, Corner isn't a huge pressing need any longer. Of course, another corner would be nice, fantastic, but I look at Vic Fangio on his last leg. Like, if the Broncos have another season like last year, I think Fangio will be fired. I think he needs a day one impact starter that comes in at a huge position of need. Micah Parsons, because of the off the field concerns, will be there at spot number 9. I think you're betting on the upside. Next up, pick 10, we have the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to say Patrick Surtain. Initially, I was going to say Caleb Farley because I think Farley is the better system fit for what Dan Quinn wants to do, but all signs are pointing that Farley's going to drop, and he's going to drop far in this first round. The injuries, the back concerns, the surgeries, I think teams are starting to get scared. Patrick Surtain otherwise is the best corner in this draft. They can maybe go Jaycee Horn. Who knows? They maybe still go with Farley, but this team desperately needs corners, especially because they lost Awuzie to Cincinnati. So Surtain to the Cowboys. Next up, spot number 11, we have the New York Giants. This one was tough because you can address different needs here, but I feel like after signing Kenny Golladay, they go out and they address the pass rushing position. Definitely a huge position of need. Gregory Rousseau from Miami. This guy's an absolute physical specimen. He's going to fit right in for what Patrick Graham wants to do on defense. I know they brought back Leo Williams. That's great, but he can't be the only pass rushing option that the team has. Rousseau will come in and get one-on-one matchups and win on these one-on-one matchups. 6'7", absolute monster. You can maybe make an argument for offensive line, but with Solder still being on the roster and he's still getting paid a lot. Andrew Thomas, 4th overall pick last year. Are you going to move one to guard? I don't know. It's just too many questions. Greg Rousseau to the Giants. Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to say wide receiver Devonta Smith from Alabama. A dynamic, explosive weapon on the offensive side of the football, coming off a Heisman Trophy winning season. A guy who can win one-on-one, a guy who can separate, a guy who can dominate with the football in his hands. Rager didn't really do much last season. Arcega-Whiteside never really was high on him. This team needs talent. With a question mark at the quarterback position, you need to at least get some weapons in the building. Devonta Smith is that. He's probably going to go top 10. The Eagles luck out in this situation. They get him at 12 or 13. No, 12. Next up, the LA Chargers. I'm going Rashawn Slater, tackle from Northwestern. I feel like the Chargers are going in the right direction. I love the Staley hire. I love bringing in Corey Linsley. We all know Justin Herbert's the man. They have offensive weapons, defensive playmakers. They just have question marks all over this offensive line. I love the Corey Linsley signing. But outside of that, it's question marks all around. It's time to start adding some building blocks to this O-line, starting with Slater. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings. Little bit of a tough spot, right? Penei Sewell off the board. Rashawn Slater off the board. Greg Rousseau off the board. Where are you going to go? I think the Vikings still address the pass rushing position, and they bring in Kwity Paye from Michigan. Some people love Paye, some people don't like him. I personally love him. I like the strength, I like the upside, I like the versatility, I like the explosiveness and the talent, the first step off of the line of scrimmage. I think if you take a guy like Paye, his just overall athletic freak, you give him that coaching staff with Mike Zimmer, a guy who works wonders with defensive linemen, always seems to maximize his talents there, really with members all over the defense, right? Especially corners, right? Defensive backs. Does a great job. Mike Zimmer's a fantastic defensive coach. And you line him up next to players that already have tons and tons of talent like the Vikings do on that line. I think Paye, getting him on one-on-one matchups, placing him all around the defensive line as kind of a defensive chess piece, I think that'll pay dividends for the Vikings defense moving forward. Next up, spot number 15, we have the Detroit Lions on the clock. Originally, this should have been the New England Patriots, but in this scenario, we had the trade. The Lions luck out and still land wide receiver from Alabama, Jalen Waddle, an electrifying playmaker. This is exactly what the Lions need. I mean, honestly, Jared Goff can get rid of the football quickly, right? Just snap it, 3-step, balls out to Jalen Waddle. He's making plays. He can hurt you in slants, crossing patterns, screens. This guy does it all. Special teams, he works as well. You have so many new things happening in Detroit, right? New general manager, new head coach, brand new coaching staff, new quarterback Jared Goff. There's a lot of moving parts. Go get a guy who you know for sure can make plays on a week-to-week basis. Get a guy that can help out offense and special teams, a versatile guy that you can line up outside and on the inside. A guy that you could, run reverses to, end arounds. I mean, this guy can really do it all. The Lions need wide receivers to begin with too. They lost Kenny Golladay. I like the Tyrell Williams signings, but the Tyrell Williams signing, but he's not going to do everything. He's not going to fully replace Golladay. So at the end of the day, Waddle for me is the pick. Next up, spot number 16, the Arizona Cardinals. They lost Patrick Peterson. They replaced him with Jaycee Horn. I felt like corner's a position of need to begin with. Now they lost Peterson, so it definitely becomes priority number one. They're signing a bunch of free agents, JJ Watt, AJ Green. That's great, but you need to address the cornerback position. Go get Horn, who can line up day one and dominate. At 17, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going to go with tackle from Oklahoma State, Teven Jenkins. Now, Jenkins is one of these guys who is shooting up draft boards. He's physically imposing. He can contribute right away. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty. In a lot of ways, he's to me personally, he reminds me a lot of John Gruden. They have a lot of similarities as far as how they approach the game mentally. Jenkins is an old school style of player. He wants to go out there and physically dominate the opponent, plays with a mean streak. I think that's what Gruden wants. Plus, you're starting to take a look at the Raiders off season so far. There's a lot of things happening on the offensive line. No more Gabe Jackson, no more Trent Brown, no more Rodney Hudson. The Raiders extended Colton Miller, so now by bringing in Jenkins, you can have your bookend tackles, your bookend franchise tackles for the next at least 4 seasons. So Jenkins to me is a perfect fit. Next up, spot number 18, we have the Miami Dolphins on the clock. I'm going to go with guard/tackle from USC, Elijah Vera-Tucker. Now, Vera-Tucker to me is one of the safest players in the draft. Get a guy in the building with a really high floor, help bolster the offensive line. This is an offensive line. Well, number one, we addressed wide receiver earlier in the draft with Jamar Chase. That'll definitely help out the offense. But now we're going back with our second first-round pick and addressing the offensive line. Austin Jackson was a pick last season out of USC I didn't like at the time, but admittedly, he proved me wrong. Credit the Dolphins front office. I didn't like the Austin Jackson pick, but he looked better than what I initially thought. I also really liked the acquisition of Solomon Kinley last year. I thought he was a nice surprise, but all in all, Vera-Tucker comes in with a high floor. You know what you're going to get from him. He's versatile, so again, he could play on the outside or the inside here. I think it would be a great pick for Miami, especially because you already addressed wide receiver. You have to get better on the offense. These two guys will instantly come in and start producing, and I think that's exactly what you need out of first-round picks. Next up, the Washington football team. I'm going to go with one of my favorite players in the entire draft, linebacker from Notre Dame, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Now, Koramoah, to me, would be a beautiful system fit into what Ron Rivera wants to do on defense. Reminds me actually a lot of Shaq Thompson back when he was at Washington. Versatile player, right? Really versatile player. I really like what Washington did in free agency. They attacked a lot of needs. Quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's obviously not the franchise guy, but he can come in and win games. William Jackson, great addition. Curtis Samuel, fantastic. But there's still that hole at linebacker. Koramoah was, number one, a beautiful system fit, highly productive college player, and he's still on the board with spot number 19, and there's not really that franchise quarterback we're taking. To me, it would be a slam dunk. Next up, the Chicago Bears. I'm going to go with tackle Christian Darrisaw from Virginia Tech. Now, the Chicago Bears are definitely in a weird spot. Are they a rebuilding team? Are they trying to make a playoff push? Some moves scream rebuild, and then some moves that they've made this offseason say, hey, we're trying to make a playoff push. But given that they've already announced that Andy Dalton is going to be the starting quarterback heading into the season, and looking at Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, these guys are on their last leg. If they don't make something happen this season, they will be fired. So I think they want a guy who can come in and play right away. I think they want a guy who can come in and help the offense. The Bears defense is not the issue. Yes, they lost Kyle Fuller. He was released. You can, argue for a cornerback here, but to me, keep an eye on Greg Newsome too, by the way, with this pick. Mid to late first round, but in this case, I think Darrisaw is too good to pass up, and I feel like the offense needs so much work, especially at the tackle position, where the defense, you can maybe find a solid starting corner in round 2 or round 3 or round 4. And the Bears already have a really good defensive coaching staff in place. So I think Darrisaw makes a lot of sense. Next up, the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to go with tackle from Texas, Sam Cosmi, a super interesting, intriguing player. I mean, his upside is tremendous. He has great size, 6'6", 315 pounds. One of my favorite players in this draft. And with Costanzo retiring, you have that hole at left tackle. If they maybe have an option on the roster at left tackle, that's fine, because Cosmi has experience playing right tackle as well. So I really like the upside. I really like the coaching staff that the Colts have. They've shown really in the past that they know how to develop players, especially guys who are extremely athletic and guys that have great size. So I think that this would be a great pick. He might not be the best player year 1, but in year 2, year 3, year 4, I think it'll really, really pay off. Next up, the division rival Tennessee Titans. I have them going with cornerback from Virginia Tech, Caleb Farley. The fall finally ends for Farley here. In many people's eyes, Farley was the best cornerback in the draft, right? Great size, great instincts, great in zone coverage. But because of the injuries, because of the back concerns, the surgeries, supposedly this is scaring teams off, and initially he was supposed to go top 10, top 12, but now it's looking like he's going to be a back half of the first round type of guy, 15 to 32. This is the perfect opportunity sitting here at spot number 22 for the Titans to take a swing on a guy. I mean, number one, he comes in at a huge position of need. No more Adoree Jackson, no more Malcolm Butler. If Farley checks out medically, if he can stay healthy, this could literally be the steal of the entire draft. I mean, he has insane potential. So with the Titans sitting here as kind of that playoff team, right, as that consistent playoff team, I think they can get a day one impact guy with Caleb Farley if the injuries and the medics kind of check out. At pick number 23, the New York Jets are back on the clock with their second first-round pick here. I would say the biggest team need for the Jets is interior offensive line, but with Elijah Vera-Tucker being previously taken by the Miami Dolphins, there's not really that guard or center worth taking with the 23rd overall pick. So we have to start shifting our attention to other positions of need. Cornerback jumps off the page, so does edge rusher. The difference between those two positions, though, is that you can still add great talent through the free agency market with corner. Richard Sherman, Brian Poole, Steven Nelson still available. With edge rusher, it's pretty much a dried up market as we stand right now. So for that reason, I have the Jets going with defensive end out of Miami, edge rusher Jaelan Phillips. Great size, great athletic ability, great upside, and great production last season for the Miami Hurricanes. He dominated last year. He lived in the opponent's backfield. I mean, he was getting after quarterbacks. He was stopping the run. Really good instincts as well. Jaelan Phillips has so much room to grow. He's a perfect system fit for what Robert Saleh wants to do on defense. All of a sudden, if Phillips is the pick, we're looking at the defensive line. Quinnen Williams and Sheldon Rankins on the interior, guys that just can dominate, just take over games. And then on the outside, we have Carl Lawson and rookie Jaelan Phillips. You take a guy like Phillips and you pair him next to a Robert Saleh, the sky's the limit for him. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm going linebacker out of Georgia, Azeez Ojulari. Now, Ojulari has really burst onto the scene. Really violent player, physical player, big hitter. I look at where Pittsburgh is right now as a team. They have a great defense. They obviously have a ton of offensive weapons. They just have a couple of question marks, and I feel like the biggest thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers is kind of just getting out of their own way, because they have the talent to literally dominate the AFC. But I felt like last season they stumbled. They had some off the field stuff with the Juju dancing, and it was just a big headache last year. Will Ben be back? Will Ben be back? Is this his last season? There was a lot of noise surrounding the organization last year. Go get a hard-nosed player out of Georgia. You lost Bud Dupree. You can easily fill his spot with Ojulari here, a proven pass rusher who fits the system perfectly. Next up, the Jacksonville Jaguars back on the board with their second first-round pick here. I'm going safety out of TCU, Trevon Moehrig. Now, when I watched Jacksonville last season, clearly they had a bunch of holes. They only won one game last year, but specifically, I felt like the back end of the defense needed a lot of work. It needed some upgrades. Now, I like CJ Henderson. He's not a perfect corner, but he did some good things last year. That's great. They brought in Shaq Griffin, huge acquisition, but the safety spot has been pretty quiet. Keep an eye on Malik Hooker. I do think we have to take into consideration that Urban Meyer connection. Malik Hooker won't be asking for a ton of money. I could see that deal going down, but for the time being, I think Trevon Moehrig here would be a slam dunk. He's a blue chip player. He could come and set the tone, be a day one instant upgrade, instant contributor, and help out mightily in the pass defense game and run defense game. So I think he'd be a great fit. Next up, the Cleveland Browns, and unlike the Jacksonville Jaguars, I don't think the Browns have a lot of needs. They have so many positions figured out: quarterback, offensive weapons, the defensive line is fantastic, running back is great, but the one sole position on this team that I feel like can maybe use a little boost is linebacker. So I'm going Zaven Collins from Tulsa, a highly productive player in college. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen highlights of this guy. He's an absolute monster. He's built perfectly for today's league, flies around, does really good in pass defense. And by the way, you look at that division as well. Pittsburgh, they're going to throw the ball a lot, right? Cincinnati, obviously they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Baltimore, on the other hand, they're going to be running the ball a lot, but it's not just the traditional power system or anything like that. It's options. It's going left, it's going right, it's going outside, inside. Lamar Jackson could be keeping it. You need athletic pieces that can flock sideline to sideline and that can do well in pass protection, or pass defense, I should say. Zaven Collins checks both of those boxes. It's a perfect fit. Next up, the Baltimore Ravens on the board here. I'm going wide receiver Kadarius Toney. Now, I know he's not the big-bodied red zone threat wide receiver that the Ravens do need, and they could of course go with Terrace Marshall here. I would love that pick as well. I don't think you could go wrong with either, but I feel like with Toney, he's a little bit more explosive, he's a little bit more creative with the football in his hands, and he has the higher upside. So you have your possession wide receiver with Sammy Watkins, great. You have your deep threat in Marquise Brown, fantastic. Now you're adding Toney into the mix, where he can take an 8-yard crossing pattern and turn it into 45 yards because of yards after the catch. You can throw a screen to him and he can take it the distance. One of the most exciting, electrifying, talented players in this draft. His separation skills are no joke. No joke. So he can hurt you over the middle of the field. All of a sudden you add just that extra element to this Ravens offense. I think it would be a great pick. Again, I would like Terrace Marshall here if you want to go that traditional route of getting that red zone threat. I would like it a lot, but I think if Toney's on the board, you got to go with him, because Toney's, if he doesn't go to Baltimore, he's going to be picked by the Saints or the Packers, like with the coming picks. So for me, it's got to be Toney. Next up, the New Orleans Saints on the clock here. I'm going wide receiver out of Purdue, Rondale Moore. Now, people are saying Rondale, he's going to go in round 2, but I just don't know. I don't want to guarantee that as of right now. I look at the New Orleans Saints. They lost Emmanuel Sanders. They need to get a little bit more explosive. You have Jameis Winston coming in as the starting quarterback. Rondale Moore is no joke. He is so good. I mean, the strength, the speed, the production. Just go look at Rondale Moore's freshman year. He was unbelievable. And I feel like the Saints have always kind of wanted that Tyreek Hill style of player, but they've never really had that. They've had Michael Thomas, they've had these bigger bodied wide receivers before. They have Kamara, which is great, but they've never really had that game-changing, shifty guy that could beat you outside and inside. I think Rondale Moore, he would just add that extra layer to this already complex Saints offense that's very, very difficult to stop. Again, with Jameis Winston coming in the building, you can now push the ball downfield a little bit. Rondale Moore in the deep passing game is so much fun to watch, so I could see Rondale Moore fitting with the Saints here. Next up, the Green Bay Packers are on the board here, and this is a team that could go in a bunch of different directions. Left tackle, possibly center maybe, to replace Corey Linsley, possibly wide receiver as well, but I think at the end of the day, Green Bay plays it safe, and they go with Greg Newsome, cornerback from Northwestern. This was a unit last season for Green Bay that got torched time and time again. I really like Jerry Alexander, but Kevin King was kind of questionable, right? And it sucks because I was a huge fan of Kevin King when he was in college, and I thought the Packers got a steal with Kevin King, but they brought him back on a 1-year, $6 million deal. If he's not the answer, or if he continues to struggle next season, you can put Newsome in the game, or just, part ways with him at the end of the season. And then all of a sudden, Greg Newsome, a polished player with great size, great athletic ability, comes in and fills that void easily. So now you feel really confident about your starting two cornerbacks in Alexander and Newsome. Next up, the Buffalo Bills on the clock here. I'm going running back Travis Etienne. Much like the Packers here, I could see the Bills going in a bunch of different directions, but I feel like at the end of the day, Travis Etienne will take this explosive, incredible offense that Buffalo already has and put them on possibly the same level as Kansas City. I mean, that's how good Etienne is. He is a huge upgrade over Singletary, which I like. I like Moss a lot as well, but Etienne is just a game changer. Just out of the backfield, he's dominant. He's absolutely dominant. You could make an argument for cornerback number 2. I completely agree with that. The Bills have to figure that position out. But I mean, Asante Samuel, he's on the board. That's great. Newsome just got taken. Do you really want to take Samuel? Do you trust him as that cornerback number 2, or do you view him more of a slot guy? I feel like there's a lot of questions with a lot of guys out there. But with Travis Etienne, there's no questions. You know he's going to be coming in. He's going to start. He's going to be a huge upgrade over what you currently have, and he's going to dominate. His pro comparison is Alvin Kamara. I would say that's pretty damn accurate. Next up, the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going with tackle, one of my favorite players in the draft, the guy who I feel like is being undervalued throughout this whole process, Liam Eichenberg, tackle from Notre Dame. They lost Mitchell Schwartz. They lost Eric Fisher. They had to release both of those guys. They brought in Joe Thuney. That is huge. That's incredible. But you have two huge holes at the tackle position. Now you're bringing in Eichenberg, a guy who can start day one, a super polished player with a high floor. You can plug him easily in a right tackle and move forward. And last but not least, the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going center, Alex Leatherwood. Leatherwood might not play year one. That's totally fine. He'd be on the bench. Maybe he takes over year 2, year 3. That's the hope. The Bucs right now, they don't have that young, promising center on the roster. You're sitting here, the last pick in the first round, and you can get that in Leatherwood, a polished player from Alabama. Sign me up for that. Plus, on top of that, the Buccaneers offensive line, the interior of the offensive line, is up there in age. You don't know how much longer these guys are going to be playing for. So Leatherwood provides not only just that insurance policy, but he will be the center for the future. So that's it. That's the mock. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I appreciate you guys sticking all the way to the end. I know it's a longer video. These mocks are typically pretty long, but I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you guys so much for watching. Happy Easter, and go Jets.